Hello lovelies, and welcome back to my channel, Sunflowers and Moonbeams. It's Brandy, and today I am doing a hashtag called hashtag only 10 mass market decks, and this was created by Garden Goddess Tarot and Rose Honey Ritual. I'll link their original videos down below if you haven't seen them already. This tag's been around for a minute, but I'm just now getting around to it because it's fun and I love doing hashtags, and why the heck not, right? So basically this hashtag's pretty straightforward. It is, if I could only have 10 mass market decks in my collection, which 10 would they be? And I'm going to get started here, and I've got a pile beside me, and so I'm doing this in no particular order of importance or favoritism or anything like that. I'm just going to get right into it. So the first one that I would keep that is mass market is the Housewives Tarot. I love this. It comes in like this old classic style recipe box. So it's got like little tabs on it, and there's like actual recipes in here. But I do keep another deck in here with it that I read when I use this deck sometimes. But we're gonna focus on the tarot at the moment. I'm drinking my coffee. All right. I love this deck. This is the back. It's, what is this called? Is this like a gingham? Is that what that's called? Anyway, you can see there's a good amount of wear and tear on it because I use the crap out of it. This deck stays in my kitchen, so I have easy access to a tarot deck. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen. You know, I have a family of 5, and so I spend a lot of time cooking and baking and all that stuff, and so this is just an easy place if I need tarot in a pinch. This is the one I go to. I love it because it's funny, it's quirky. Like you can see, it's been used. Okay, this is a well-loved deck. It has like this classic vintage, like 1950s housewife feel to it. I love the way they did the artwork. Like I said, it has a sense of humor. This deck makes me laugh. It is very good at getting its point across. I understand the messages. The guidebook's okay, but I don't usually use it because I don't usually need it. And it reminds me a lot of my mom. Like my mother was an older woman, and so she kind of grew up like in this era, right? And the things that is pictured in here, it reminds me of things that she had, or things that she did, or things that she used to say, and it makes me feel closer to my mom. She has been passed now for a while, but it just, I don't know, it reminds me of my mom, pretty much. And I love it. I love the artwork. Oops, got a few upside down here. And like I said, I don't think I could go without this in my collection. I use it so much. It's a tried and true deck for me. I love that. Oh, that's a great hermit. And so, yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. This one is one of the ones that reminds me a lot of my mom, like a lot. Like, see how this woman is like protecting her good china? That reminds me of my mom because she had a china cabinet that all her good dishes were in, and heaven forbid anybody ever touch any of her good china. So, I mean, it's just little things like that in the deck. And that reminds me, this is another one because, you know, death, salmonella, leaving the mayonnaise out. My mom always used to yell at me if I'd forget to put the mayonnaise up on the counter after making a sandwich or something. She'd be like, "You're gonna get salmonella," you know. So I mean, it reminds me of my mom. And so yeah, it stays in the kitchen where I can use it a lot, all the time actually, which is why it is in such tattered disarray on the edges. And that is the Housewives Tarot. And I believe you can find this on Amazon. Pretty sure that's where I got mine from. Alright, on to the next. The next deck that I would have to keep that's mass market is the Deviant Moon Tarot, borderless edition. And the original one I got was the bordered edition. It comes in this little tuck box. But I rehomed that and got this one because I wasn't a big fan of the borders. So this one is really skinny and tall. Okay. And this deck is creepy AF. But I have used this for years for shadow work, and it has never failed me. It is like a punch to the face. It is blunt. The creatures on it are disturbing and nightmarish, but I kind of love that. It's just so unique. The artwork is so very different, right? Than we see in a lot of other tarot decks. So, I mean, I love it. And I like how, because they look so strange, I can sit there and kind of get a feel for the character's personality or point of view, and sometimes that helps me in interpreting the cards or in the reading, and sometimes they just make me laugh. Like this guy, for instance, he's sticking his creepy tongue out and you can see his bum. I mean, that's just it's funny to me, you know. Of course, not all the cards are funny. Some of them are just downright weird, but I like it, you know. And it has always been good to get my shadow work readings, you know. I've used all kinds of decks, just about every deck in my collection really, for shadow work at one time or another, just because you don't have to have a dark deck or like a creepy, scary deck to do shadow work. You don't have to have a shadow work base deck either. You can do shadow work with anything. You can do shadow work with a cartoony deck, a childlike deck, regular, like anything really. It doesn't have to be a deck like this, but this is what I was drawn to for my shadow work, because it kind of put me in that headspace, right, of okay, I'm gonna talk about some uncomfortable stuff, gonna use an uncomfortable deck just so that I can get a real feel for it, for what it's trying to tell me. And like I said, I don't always do that. Sometimes I want a more gentle approach to my shadow work, but this one has been tried and true. And it's very popular, and this is one of those decks where people either really love it or they really hate it, okay? Me, I really love it, and so this has to stay in my collection. All right. Now, let's see. The next mass market tarot that I would choose is the Tarot of Mystical Moments by Katrin Weldt-Stein. This is another favorite of mine. And the backs are monochromatic. It does have like a pale kind of design into it, and it has silver gilding. This deck is very dreamlike to me. a matter of fact, I do use this sometimes for dream work, but I like to use this for really anything. I use it a lot for family readings, like if I need to do readings on like a familial situation, because it's very interpretive, right? Now it is based on RWS, but because of the art style, you can interpret it in a way that may not be traditionally strictly RWS, right? It leaves room for that, and I like that, because when I'm looking into a situation involving other people in my life, I really want like more insight, right? I want more insight into the situation than maybe I would be seeing if I used a regular RWS deck. This one just gives me a little bit more depth in my readings, and I love the artwork. I love the weirdness in it. It's gorgeous. And I like how there are female and male versions of a few of the cards. This one, for instance, I love this Nine of Wands. This is one of my favorite Knight of Wands, right? Because you can see that she's been through it, right? She has been through it. She has gotten cut and wounded, but she's stitched herself back together and she's healing, right? She's went through some shit, but she's coming out the other side of it. She's healing, right? I love that. I just, and I love like the kind of Victorian style faces and people and stuff in here. I just love that artwork. I've always been drawn to the Victorian era. And I'm sure that everyone has seen this before, but I just enjoy it, so I'm going to flip through it a little more. I love all the flowers in it too. I love how floral it is, how earthy it feels. And I mean, it has water and stuff too. And oh, is that not a stunning death card? Gorgeous. I love how they have like a carnival man for the Seven of Wands. That's great. But yeah, this one, I love that one too. Ugh. There's so much that can be read. This is an amazing strength card too. Because for once, the human is not the one that's vulnerable, right? And the lion is not the one that's strong. This time, the lion is vulnerable, and showing that vulnerability, especially, you know, to a human. I mean, that's strength. Sometimes there is strength in vulnerability, you know, allowing yourself to be vulnerable is hard, and it takes a certain type of strength to do that. So, I mean, I just love this deck. I love it all to pieces. So it would have to stay. All right. Oh my gosh, what is happening? I have done that. This is like my second or third video I've filmed today, and I just keep bumping my camera. I apologize, y'all. I do. I'm working on a very tiny desk space at the moment, and so I have everything piled up all around me, and things are getting bumped. My bad. Alright, so the next one that I would choose is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, I realize that there's like a kerfuffle about the guidebook where some of the cards, actually, I think it's like 17 or 18 cards actually, are incorrect because they have a different card in the guidebook than what is on the deck. And if someone has this and they're not familiar with the show and they rely heavily on the guidebook, I can see how that would be a big major problem. But for me, someone who is a huge Buffy fan and have been since like middle school and grew up with it, it's not a problem. It's RWS based, first of all. And secondly, I know every character in here, and I'm pretty sure it's still in order, because I think I did a video on this. But anyway, I know all the characters in this. I know the scenes and what's happening. It's a lot like my Little Wizards tarot that I have, which is an indie deck, but I don't need a guidebook to read with it either, because I know what's happening. As a matter of fact, I'm watching Buffy again right now. I'm in season 5 at the moment. Comment down below if you're a Buffy fan. Let me know where my peeps are. So yeah, I love this because it puts me in that place, kind of like my Little Wizards tarot does, of childhood. You know, I have a lot of fond memories growing up that revolved around this show. Actually, me and my friends hanging out and watching it. I had like a fan page I made once of it when I was in like 9th grade. I mean, I had posters up on my wall. I was a huge Buffy fan. I was like borderline obsessed with it growing up. So I love it. And like I said, having a deck that reminds me of something from my childhood that I can pick up and read with without having to rely on the guidebook, and I know the characters and the scenes, it helps add more meaning and depth to my readings, because I can look at a card and remember that character and that character's traits and what that character experienced and went through as the show progressed. And I can look at that scene that's happening in the card and remember what happened in that episode, and I can apply that knowledge to my reading and the way that I interpret my reading. So I love decks like this that I'm very connected to and knowledgeable of. And I mean, come on, it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Of course I have to have this. I think I got my copy at, I want to say Books A Million, actually. Pretty sure. Saw it and could not wait to get my hands on it. Picked it up immediately. Went there to get another deck and ended up buying this one also. So darn that bookstore and their tempting display of tarot decks. But yeah, I would have to keep this one, most definitely. And like I said, the guidebook issue doesn't bother me. Now, if they come out with another version where the guidebook is fixed, would I repurchase it? Yes. Would I get rid of this one? Probably not. I'd just have 2 copies, to be honest. Okay, so the next one is the Nicoletta Tarot, and it comes in this little tuck box, but I don't keep it in this little tuck box. I don't keep all my decks in their boxes, so bear with me for a second. I keep it in another little box over here because I use this a lot for inner child healing. So like inner child healing centric type work. So these are the backs and this is the artwork. And it does have the Roman numerals for the majors, and then it has the symbols and the number for the minors. And some people are creeped out by this deck, but I'm not. The characters in it remind me of children. They're very childlike, doll-like, and they're all so sad. Like even her ice cream looks sad, right? And so this deck really puts me in that place of child healing, right? Like the inner child of me that was never heard or never seen, or, you know, felt pain of some sort, usually emotional. This deck really puts me there. And I'm sure everyone has seen it. I mean, look, she's in a field of giant lollipops with a bee on a leash. It is interpretive because it's based on the artwork of Nicoletta Tarot. It's not RWS based, so it is interpretive. But when I'm doing inner child healing work, I need that, right? I don't want a cookie cutter RWS, okay? I want something I can dive deeper into with the artwork, and this gives me that. So, I mean, it has its own little special box that sits on my tarot desk all the time. So, of course, obviously, I have to keep this, right? Have to. This has gotten me through a lot of issues. Okay. Now, the next one is the Ancestor Spirit Oracle cards by Jade Sky. And once again, this is just like a two-piece box. Once again, this one is not in its box because this one lives in this purple velvet bag on my ancestor altar. And I keep it in here with the guidebook because I love the guidebook. These are the backs. And this is the deck that I use for ancestral work every week. I just draw a card, you know, every week, and it sits on my ancestor altar. And I love it because it has stunning artwork from all different cultures and time periods, and it has the blurb on the card, and then it has keywords. Okay, so you don't have to use the guidebook, but I like to because the guidebook goes into what is happening in the card. It tells you what culture it is. It tells you what's happening in the card, like what their practice was, and then it gives you divinatory meanings. I mean, it's great. And so, yeah, I just ask my ancestors what I need to focus on the most that week and draw a card, and it sits on my ancestor altar, and that's what I try to focus on that week. You know, I love it. I love the artwork. I love how there's all different kinds of cultures I've never heard of and knew nothing about before getting this deck. I mean, and I like how it's got a little bit of everybody in it, you know? I mean, if you think back to your ancestors, they didn't all just come from one place, right? You're made up of a mishmash of people and cultures. So I like that it has so many in here. And just to show you what I was talking about in the guidebook, like for example, here is a card. It doesn't have color pictures, but that's okay. And it tells you the name of the card and the keywords, and then it tells you what is happening in the card. Okay, like this one is about the Germanic tribes observing some holiday that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce on camera. And it tells you about what's happening in this card. And then it tells you, you know, what the ancestors are saying to you, and then the divinatory meaning. And it does it for every card. So I like that extra depth. Like I said, you don't have to use the guidebook because it has keywords on it, but I like the extra depth that it gives. About what's happening in the card and who the culture is and what they're doing, you know? Okay, and then Another deck that is mass market that I absolutely couldn't go without, that would have to stay in my collection, and it is in its own bag also, is my Lightseers. And this is the mass market copy. I did edge this myself in green, but oh, this one's in order too. But this one, I can't remember why I put this one in order. Why did I put this one in order? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I love this. This sits in my bedroom on my nightstand by my bed. That's where it lives. And I've said it before in other videos, but I'll say it again. If I had to have one deck that is considered a soul deck, this would be it. This would be it, because I just feel that connected to it. I've had amazing readings with this deck. I use it for everything, literally all the time. I'm very bonded with it. Sometimes the readings that come out of this, it's almost like it reads my mind, right? Like, I don't have to work hard to interpret a reading that I get with this deck. It's like it just naturally flows with me, if that makes any sense. I may not be making sense, but I don't know how else to explain it. I love the bohemian feel to it, the vibe. I mean, it's just great. I love the colors. I love the artwork with like the cross hatching in almost all the cards, at least, you know, around the edges. I love it. I love the modern feel to it. I love the colors. I love how expressive the people are. They're so expressive. And like I've said before, if I have a deck that has people faces on it, I like for them to be expressive, because I like to be able to take in, like, you can look at her face and tell that she's not satisfied, right? She's extremely bored looking. I mean, that's like the epitome of boredom, that expression on her face. So I like that in a deck, and this deck is very good at that. And obviously, since I am so strongly bonded to it, it's never, ever, 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 ever leaving my collection. And that's the Lightseers. All right, now the next mass market deck that I would have to keep is the Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels. And this one is also not in its box. And that is because I keep this one also in a box on my table. These are the backs. I love it. I love the dark kind of gothic feel of it with the blood splatter all over the rose. I edged this one myself in red Crayola marker. And I mean, I love this. I've been obsessed with vampires since I was a very young child. I've dressed up as a vampire many times for Halloween just because it's one of my favorite, you know, scary creatures. I love pretty much everything about them. And so this deck obviously drew me in, and I love the artwork. It's so gothic and it's sexy, and I mean, if you know, you know, you know. I love the border on the bottom, very gothic with the blood dripping down and the vines. I love that there are animals in it, but like animals that are sometimes considered darker, like snakes, and there's like little demon-like creatures in it. It feels very old school vampire to me, you know, not the glittery kind, which I have no problem with because I am a fan of Twilight. I admit it. I am not ashamed of that. But I like this old school type of vampire. This is the kind of vampire that reminds me of the ones that I read about and watched movies about as a child growing up. And you probably hear my daughter in the background fussing, probably at her daddy for something. So yeah, I love this. I know it's more of a darker type deck, but I use this for really any reading, really. And the book that comes to this, Phantasmagoria, is incredible. It has given me so much more insight into tarot than I had before reading it. I mean, it has really added to my tarot readings, not just with this deck, but with any deck I pick up, because the book is amazing. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It did come with the deck, but I think there are places where you can get the book separate. Don't ask me where they are because I don't know, but I have heard of people getting the book separately before. But yeah, I love it. I love it. This speaks to the gothic teenager in me, because yes, I went through that phase in high school. It lasted a few years. Also unashamed. So yeah, I would have to keep this one for sure. And let's see, I think we're on, that was number 8, I think. So number 9, like I said though, these are in no particular order of favoritism or anything. I'm just going through the ones I pick up. So this is The Forest of Enchantment by Linnea Weatherstone. And I would have to keep this one because this deck is magical to me, okay? This deck is like a fairy tale in a deck. I love the backs, first of all, because who doesn't like owls? But I love the fairy tale vibes, right? It has magical creatures, mythical beings, pictures of fairy tale lore, dragons, unicorns, gnomes, and I love all the greenery. I love all the forest vibe and the flowers. It just feels whimsical and magical. And I love it. It gets me in that fairy tale space, right? And this is also a well-known deck, so I love this one. So I'm sure that you've all seen this one before, but I love it. I'd have to keep it. It would have to have a spot in my top 10 mass market decks that I would keep. I love this with Hansel and the Candy House. I love that the strength card is got a wolf. But yeah, I mean, what's not to love about this? The artwork is stunning. Now the suits are renamed, so it's not like the traditional RWS suits of aces, cups, swords, and wands, but it's not difficult. If you look in the guidebook, it's not difficult to learn the different ones. Like there's spells, visions, and I think it's boons and challenges. But yeah, I have to have that one. Have to. End of story. Okay, and then we're on our last one. Yay! Number 10, last but certainly not least at all. And that is the Mermaid Tarot by Lisa Robertson. Now, this also comes in a really big box. Just like the last couple of ones. But that's okay. These are the backs, and I would have to pick this one because I am a water baby. I love water. I could live at the beach, okay? I love mermaids. I've always loved mermaids. I love the idea of mermaids, the whole concept. This is like the greatest Wheel of Fortune. But it's also magical, but in like that mermaid story sort of way. It is also RWS based, but I love the characters. I love the art style. I love the artwork. And I love that it's mermaids. I mean, that's basically mainly it, is that it's mermaids. I mean, as someone who loves mermaids and loves the ocean as much as I do, it would seem wrong to me if I didn't have at least one mermaid deck in my collection. Now, granted, I have several. But of those, this one is my favorite. I think it's because of all the colors and the detail and the artwork. And this is probably my favorite Ace of Pentacles ever. I mean, it's a freaking treasure chest. Come on now. I just love it. And I love how there's like tiny little Nemos. Clownfish. But yeah, I'd have to have this one. This gives me my, when I'm wanting like a watery feeling type deck, this gives me it. It just checks all the boxes for when I'm in that particular sort of mood. And I believe that was our last one. Let me double check. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, that's it. And I'm sorry for you listening to my daughter fuss at her daddy and her brother in there. Clearly they're not doing something she wants, and she runs this house. She likes to think she does. She's a year old and she can't say a whole lot of words, but she gets her point across pretty easily. Anyway, that does it for this video, y'all. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like down below. It really helps my channel. I really appreciate it. Leave a comment down below and let me know if you would keep any of these in your deck collection, if you could only choose 10 mass market decks. If you know anyone that enjoys tarot and oracle content, please share my video with them. Send them in my direction. And if you haven't already, please click the subscribe button down below and the little notification bell so that you'll know when I post new videos. And as always, y'all, thanks for watching.